There is a shadow cast over the modern world. It is not a government. It is not a military force. It is not a secret society meeting in a dark room. It is something much more terrifying, because it is happening right in front of your eyes, in broad daylight, and yet you do not see it. Imagine a single entity that owns a piece of the house you live in. It owns a share of the car you drive to work. It is the major shareholder in the bank where you keep your savings, the news station that shapes your worldview, and the pharmaceutical company that manufactures your medicine. You might think you have freedom of choice. You choose between Apple and Microsoft. You choose between Coke and Pepsi. You choose between Exxon and Chevron. But what if I told you that behind all these rivals there is one common master, one giant hand pulling the strings of the entire global economy? They control over $10 trillion in assets. To put that into perspective, that is more money than the GDP of Germany, Japan, and India combined. If this company were a country, it would be the third largest economy on Earth, trailing only the United States and China. Their name is BlackRock. And for the next 15 minutes, we are going to expose how they quietly conquered the world, weaponized your own retirement money against you, and built a supercomputer that knows your future better than you do. Welcome to the Silent Empire. To understand the scale of this empire, we have to start with something simple, something you do every week. Walk into your local supermarket. You walk down the beverage aisle, and you see a wall of options: Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Sprite. It looks like a fierce battlefield of capitalism, where brands fight tooth and nail for your attention. But this is an illusion. If you peel back the corporate logos and look at the shareholder lists, you will find the same names at the very top: BlackRock and its close partner Vanguard. They are the top shareholders in Coca-Cola. They are also the top shareholders in PepsiCo. Now step outside and look at the technology in your pocket. You might be an Apple user, loyal to the iPhone ecosystem, or maybe you prefer Microsoft and Android. These companies are supposed to be bitter rivals, yet BlackRock is a top owner of Apple, and BlackRock is a top owner of Microsoft. Do you see the pattern yet? It extends to almost every industry that affects your daily life. Look at the airlines: American Airlines, Delta, United. They're supposed to compete to give you the cheapest ticket, but when the same giant investor owns a massive chunk of all of them, the incentive to compete disappears. Why would BlackRock want American Airlines to lower prices to beat United if BlackRock also owns United? It is more profitable for the entire industry to keep prices high. This is what economists call common ownership. It is a monopoly hiding in plain sight. But here's the most twisted part of the story. BlackRock did not buy the world with their own money. They bought it with yours. The vast majority of the $10 trillion they manage comes from pension funds, retirement accounts, and sovereign wealth funds. They take the hard-earned savings of teachers, firefighters, and nurses, and they use that capital to buy up the entire stock market. They have effectively used the public's money to build a private kingdom that answers to no one. But managing $10 trillion is impossible for a human brain. The sheer volume of data, the millions of trades, the global risk factors, it's too much for any board of directors to handle. So they built something else, something that has quietly become the operating system of the modern financial world.
Deep in a secure data center in Wenatchee, Washington, roughly 3,000 miles away from Wall Street, there is a row of servers humming in the dark. This is not a Bitcoin mining farm. It is not a cloud storage facility for your vacation photos. It is the central nervous system of the global economy. They call it Aladdin. Aladdin stands for Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network. But that is just a polite corporate acronym. In reality, Aladdin is a crystal ball. It started in 1988 as a simple risk management tool on a single Sun Microsystems workstation. Today, it has evolved into a superintelligence that monitors every heartbeat of the global economy. Aladdin doesn't just look at stock prices. It analyzes political shifts, currency fluctuations, climate change data, and even consumer credit card spending in real time. It runs millions of Monte Carlo simulations every single day, basically simulating thousands of different future scenarios to predict exactly what will happen to the world's money if a war breaks out, or if a pandemic hits, or if inflation rises by 1%. And here is where it gets terrifying. Aladdin doesn't just manage BlackRock's money, it manages everyone else's too. Nearly every major bank, insurance company, and pension fund in the West pays BlackRock to use Aladdin. Vanguard uses it, State Street uses it. Even the tech giants like Apple and Microsoft rely on it to manage their massive cash reserves. It is estimated that Aladdin oversees at least $21 trillion in assets. That's equal to the GDP of the United States. This means that a single software platform owned by a single private company is effectively the eyes and ears of the entire market. When the 2008 financial crisis brought the world to its knees, the U.S. government didn't know which banks were toxic and which were safe. They were flying blind. So who did they call? They called Larry Fink. The Federal Reserve hired BlackRock to clean up the mess. They gave Aladdin the keys to the kingdom, asking it to analyze the toxic assets of Bear Stearns and AIG. Think about that for a moment. The United States government, the most powerful entity on Earth, had to outsource its own financial survival to a private company. And they did it again in 2020. When the pandemic threatened to crash the bond market, the Fed turned to BlackRock once more to manage the bailout. BlackRock became the judge, jury, and executioner of the economy. But who is the man sitting behind the terminal? Who is the architect of this machine?
At the helm of this digital empire sits a man you might walk past on the street without noticing. He doesn't have the celebrity status of Elon Musk or the public notoriety of Mark Zuckerberg. He prefers to operate in the quiet corridors of power. His name is Larry Fink. Fink founded BlackRock in 1988 after being fired from First Boston for losing $100 million in a single quarter. That failure taught him a brutal lesson about risk. He swore he would never be blind to the market again, and he kept that promise. Today, he is arguably the most powerful CEO in history. But Larry Fink doesn't just want to make money, he wants to reshape the world. In his annual letters to CEOs, letters that are read like religious scriptures by the business world, Fink introduced a new rule book. It is called ESG. Environmental, social, and governance. On paper, ESG sounds noble. It asks companies to be greener, more diverse, and more socially responsible. But in practice, it is a weapon of mass control. Because BlackRock owns a massive stake in almost every public company, Fink has the power to vote against directors who don't follow his rules. If a CEO refuses to adopt BlackRock's climate policies or social agendas, BlackRock can simply threaten to dump their stock or fire their board. This is not the free market. This is coercion. Fink has explicitly stated behaviors are going to have to change, and we have to force behaviors. Think about that phrase, force behaviors. We are seeing a shift from shareholder capitalism, where companies answer to their owners, to stakeholder capitalism, where companies answer to a self-appointed elite. By controlling the flow of capital, Larry Fink can effectively bypass Congress and legislate from his office in New York.
He can decide which industries survive and which ones starve based on a scoring system that his company helps to define. But recently, this control has moved beyond the boardroom and into your own backyard.
But the ambition of the silent empire does not stop at the stock exchange. Recently, they have turned their hungry eyes towards something much more personal. They're coming for your home. In the last few years, the American housing market has gone insane. In cities like Atlanta, Phoenix, and Charlotte, regular families trying to buy their first home are facing a nightmare. They find a house, they make an offer, and within hours they are rejected. Why? Because someone else swooped in with an all-cash offer, 20% above the asking price, with no inspection required. Who has that kind of cash lying around? It is not your neighbors. It is Wall Street. BlackRock, along with other institutional giants, has been quietly buying up entire neighborhoods of single-family homes. They are not buying them to flip them, they are buying them to hold them forever. By using their virtually unlimited access to cheap capital, they are systematically outbidding the American middle class. They are taking homes off the market and turning them into permanent rental properties. This is a fundamental shift in the American dream. For decades, home ownership was the primary way a family built wealth and stability. Now that ladder is being pulled up. Why would they do this? Because a subscription model is better for business than a one-time sale. If they can turn a generation of owners into a generation of renters, they guarantee a steady stream of income for their investors for the next century. Every month, you write a check to a landlord that is actually a faceless corporation managed by an algorithm. This aligns perfectly with a controversial prediction from the World Economic Forum, a group deeply connected to Larry Fink. You have probably heard the phrase, "You will own nothing and you will be happy." It sounded like a conspiracy theory a few years ago, but look around you. You stream your music, you don't own the CD. You stream your movies, you don't own the DVD. Your software is a monthly subscription, and now your home is becoming a service provided by BlackRock. The loop is closing. You are no longer a participant in the economy. You are merely a tenant in their world.
So, where does this leave us? We are living in a world where a single entity manages the money, controls the corporations, enforces the social behavior, monitors the risks via supercomputer, and owns the roof over your head. BlackRock is not just a company. It is a fourth branch of government, unelected and unaccountable. It is a modern form of feudalism where the lords sit in glass towers in Manhattan, and the rest of us work to pay them rent in a world they designed. The question is not whether BlackRock is evil. Corporations are neither good nor evil. They are machines built to maximize efficiency and control. The question is, are we comfortable with this much power being concentrated in so few hands? If history has taught us anything, it is that absolute power eventually cracks. But until then, the silent empire continues to grow, day by day, dollar by dollar, while the world sleeps. Now that you are awake, you have a choice. You can ignore this and go back to scrolling, or you can start paying attention to where your money goes. If you want to uncover more stories about the hidden forces shaping your life, stories about Vanguard, State Street, and the Federal Reserve, then make sure you are subscribed to this channel. Share this video with someone who needs to see the truth. This is the silent empire. We are watching.